We have, I said it's so good to have so many people here, and some guests, some good old friends. The Grossishes here visiting from Texas and on their way via home from camp for a couple weeks. It's just a blessing to have you all here today. Signs maybe that we're getting close to something we'll call normal. We're not there yet, obviously, but hopefully soon. Last week we started in the Psalms of Ascent, so if you want to turn there to Psalm, about the 120s, we're working our way through the Psalms of Ascent. These are the songs they sang in this particular order on their journey for the special feast from wherever they lived to Jerusalem. And so the premise here is that as you travel towards Jerusalem, the crowds are growing because as you spread out, everybody's coming. And then, remember, Jerusalem is built on a mountaintop, so there's not going to be 20 different roads going there. There's probably 2 or 3 at the most. I've never researched that. That would be fun to know. But anyways, as you're getting closer, the crowds are growing and the Psalms become more significant to you as you get closer and closer. And as I was reading through that, I mentioned this last week, but for those of you that didn't hear it, this is for your benefit. I was looking for something to help us with the trials we go through in this. I really feel like I'm seeing more people that are depressed and struggling with a lack of human contact, and I found this, and I thought this really parallels. And let me just repeat Psalm 120 where we start, and then we'll pick up where we left off last week. Psalm 120 begins in the first line saying, "In my distress, I called to the Lord, and he answered." Distress. And I know there are varying degrees of distress that we're suffering through. There may be things that have nothing to do with COVID that you're going through, but COVID seems to amplify it because we're having to deal with the normal things of life much more alone than we would have before. And so we deal with this distress, and how do I get through this when it seems like I'm alone, there's no help? And well, the answer is already given in the first line or the second line. We call on the Lord. We make a journey to God. And we may be all in various different places on that journey, but it's a journey nevertheless. And so as we go through this, I've been picking out certain points that I think connect with where at least some of us might be, and I hope no matter where you are, it will help you in that walk. So let's get back to the text, and enough of the intro, enough of me, and more to what the psalmists have to say. So let's go to 126, number 126, that psalm. Pick up your songbooks and turn to number 126. It says there, "When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter and our tongue with shouts of joy. Then they said among the nations, 'The Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us. We are glad.' Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like the streams of the Negev. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. He who goes out weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, bringing the sheaves with him." I'm reminded here, and I think as they're making this journey, remember, once again, Jerusalem's on a mountain, and so this is an uphill trip. This is an uphill trip, and if you're a biker like I am, not motorcycle, bicycle, you know that uphill makes a difference. Amen. Makes a big difference, yes. And so there's going to be some challenges. You're going to, I need to take a break here. I got to catch my breath before I make that next crest up the next hill. Or maybe the challenges are dealing with the increased crowds. The closer you get to Jerusalem, the more specific the roads, and probably the narrower the roads get to some degree, because it's harder to build roads on the side of a hill. And so you're having to jostle with people and wait for them. They say 1 million people would sometimes come into these feasts. And they're all coming for the same dates and the same times. There's going to be challenges along the journey to God. It's never just a straight line. It's up a hill and then maybe it flattens and then it goes, but it's going to be a challenge. It's not all going to be easy and fun. Look at verse 5 and 6. Those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. But even as the journey continues, there's the hope of joy. Oh, these old bones are going to get to rest when we get to the top of the hill. I'll get off that bike and rest my seat and rest my arms and legs, and yay, I'm almost there. Yay, I get to coast down on the way home. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be challenges. I love this line. We sow seeds of tears and heartache. We reap shouts of joy. I love that. We sow seeds of tears, but we reap shouts of joy. In other words, the challenges of the journey are not going to compare to the joy that's set before us. We read that earlier, remember? Different text. But whoever wrote that must have read this and known this. So we move along in our journey. Number 127. Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is in vain that you rise up early and go to late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sleep. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb a reward, like arrows in the hand of the warrior, are children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. This begins a series within the series of 2 or 3 psalms that talk about children. Can you imagine why on this journey they might be talking about children? Oh, you're maybe halfway there, and on the back of the camel the kids are saying, "Are we there yet?" How many more hills? And the children are getting restless. They want to travel at a different pace than you, maybe slower, maybe faster. And so you're having to corral them. And so on the journey, you're reminded of the blessedness of children at just that time when maybe you're not feeling it. Maybe you're not feeling it right now in church with the kids. Because it's hard. It's tough. It's a tough journey to the Lord. And even forget about church. Just talk about the journey to God, trying to bring your children along. That can be a challenge. But he offers some advice. He compares the children to an arrow in your quiver. You're blessed if your quiver has children in it. Yes, you are. But you know, what do you do with an arrow? Do you just toss it in the air? What do you do with an arrow? You put it in the bow and you aim at a target. We recognize that children are an arrow and we have a target we are facing them towards. We are pointing them to a destination. In this case, they had a real destination. It was Jerusalem, but they have another destination in mind, and that is faith in the Lord. If we don't point our children to the Lord, there's not much chance they're going to get there. We have to point them. We have to show them the end of the journey and help them see it and help them get there. And church, we have that responsibility for all the children to help them, to walk them. They are part of us. Maybe they're not baptized yet and it's not official, but they're part of us. They're in our family. It's Jesus who said, if we want to be part of the kingdom, we've got to become like children. They don't have to become like us to get in there. We have to look at them. They are a part of it, maybe more legitimately than we are in some ways. And so it's tough making that journey. Ask Jesus' parents. They made this journey, and on one of the trips, you can get a sense of the massiveness as the crowds and the size of the family clans traveling. Excuse me. And Mary thinks Jesus is with Joseph, and Joseph thinks Jesus is with Mary. And they get a couple days down the road. Can you imagine that? And then they start talking. Isn't Jesus with you? I thought he was with you. No, I thought he was with some friends. It's like, where's Jesus? And so they have to go back and find him. And where is he? Confounding the learned people in the temple. Telling them about his Father. Imagine the anxiety. They scold Jesus. What do you think you've been doing? Well, I've been about my Father's business. Oh, your Father's business is to stay close to me. You can just imagine that conversation. Children are hard. It's hard bringing up children in the Lord in a world that's often antagonistic to faith. It doesn't take much for them to hold on to something the world gives them that's not from God. Excuse me. So, trust him. Let's go on to 128, which I think is related to the earlier one. Blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. You shall eat the fruit of the labor of your hands. You shall be blessed and shall be well with you. Your wife will be like a fruitful vine from your house. Excuse me. Your children will be like olive shoots around your table. Excuse me, I'm going to throw a cough drop in my mouth. Your children will be like olive shoots around the table, because thus shall the man be blessed who fears the Lord. The Lord bless you from Zion. May you see the prosperity of Jerusalem all the days of your life. May you see your children's children. Peace be upon Israel. Once again, as they approach Jerusalem, the crowds grow and the numbers of women and children grow as well. The family clans sort of pull in together, hopefully more to keep track of everybody. But it's hard to ignore the children. Verses 1 say, blessed is everyone who fears the Lord. Think of that, everyone. And then he begins talking about wives and children. I think he's pulling them in. As you're making this journey, as the steps add up, no Fitbits back then to count your steps, but the steps are adding up. You can feel it in your bones. He says, start looking at your family and remember who they are. Take a look at your wife, your partner in this journey, hopefully. What a blessing that is to share in that. And if not, what a hope you have to go to Jerusalem, to be encouraged, and to go home and show a mate that loving God makes a difference in your life. If you want your non-believing spouse to come to Jesus, show them how God blesses you in your life. Go home from the journey, go back and say, wow, church really helped me see how I need to love better. You show them that, that's your best chance. Peter says it, win your spouse, win your husband without a word, by your conduct. Appreciate your spouse if they're walking in faith with you, because that's such a great blessing. Count the children out and say, wow, there they are. Everyone matters to God in the kingdom. Look at verses 3 and 4. Your wife will be a fruitful vine. Your children will be like olive shoots around your table. You know the idea of an olive shoot? I've got a tree out in front of my house that likes to send those suckers out from the base, and you have to go all the time and cut them, otherwise it looks messy, it looks terrible. Olives were like that. These shoots are going out everywhere, and you got to trim them down, otherwise the tree doesn't produce. It needs to be pruned. Kids are shooting everywhere. Got to corral them. Got to teach them. Got to appreciate them. You got to help them see. Even verse 6 says, may you see your children's children. Peace be to Israel. Even the grandchildren. I'm fortunate enough to have seen that. Somebody asked me this morning, well, how many you got? And so I had to count, 11. Some have more, some have less, but I like 11. It's been good. And it's wonderful to see as some of them start getting older and begin to practice their faith. You can begin to see their journey to the Lord. How special is that? How special is that? So, let's go one more, I think, and then we'll finish off next week, 129. I think this is one of those deals where these psalms weren't written in this order, they were assembled in this order. And so somebody who's putting this together says, oh yeah, while we're talking about families and kids, how about 129? Greatly have they afflicted me from my youth. Let Israel now say, greatly have they afflicted me from my youth, yet they have not prevailed against me. Not everything supports faith. Not everything in our kids' world is helpful. And we need to be reminded, thank you for a glass of that'd be great. So, there's going to be some effort. And it's going to be difficult. The plowers plowed upon my back. They made long furrows. Unless you're a farmer, you're not going to get that. And even me, I grew up on a farm, but long furrows sitting on a tractor is a whole lot different than a long furrow behind a horse or an oxen. You don't like those big long fields. You like short ones where you get to the end and you take a rest. You don't stop in the middle. Sometimes the furrow's long and there are challenges. Just as we've talked about some of those things earlier. But how do we get through it? Verse 4. The Lord is righteous. The Lord is righteous. He has cut the cords of the wicked. God wins. They're reminded. They're not even finishing their journey and they're already being reminded that God overcomes the wicked. They're still in the fight. They're still making it difficult. But God is righteous. He is victorious. May all who hate Zion be put to shame and turn back. Let them be like the grass of the mountaintops, or the housetops, which withers before it grows up. with which the reaper does not fill his hand, nor the binder of sheaves of his arms. Nor do those who pass by say, the blessing of the Lord be upon you. We bless you in the name of the Lord. We're not quite there yet, but we're there long enough to know that there's great things coming. And maybe we're close enough to Jerusalem that we can see it off in the distance, or we can at least see the mountain peeking up over it. Maybe we're in that point with COVID, where it's like, oh, we're not through it yet, but maybe we can begin to see some hope. Or maybe you're in your walk in your life where it's been challenging, but you can begin to see hope. That's what a journey to God brings. It's not all fun and games. It's not all rosy, but it is filled with hope because of who God is. He is a righteous God. I hope this has blessed you. I hope you're making connections to this journey, both in terms of your walk in God, maybe in terms of COVID. I don't